Hello and welcome to Rhythm and Chai. I am Urja Desai Thakore. This episode is about teaching and about lineage. My own training and my understanding of teaching comes from Kadamb. I learned how to teach by being taught and by observing, by watching Kumi Band, by watching Sandhya Band, and by paying attention to how knowledge was being held, shared, and embodied. When I began teaching, I tried to pass that on. Not just the material, but the values underneath it. Over the years, though my teaching has also changed, it's been shaped by experience, by responsibility, and by listening to the people in front of me. So, this conversation isn't about reproducing a method, it's about something which is carried forward and how it transforms along the way. Today, I'm sitting with three teachers who have each arrived here through different routes. They have trained with me for different lengths of time. They don't teach in the same way, and they don't need to. What matters to me is not sameness, it's care, it's clarity, and it's attention to what students experience in the room. So today, we are listening to the difference, to practice, and to what gets passed on without being fixed. This is Rhythm and Chai, and this is Utsav, New Feet Teachers. Welcome, Parvati, Meera, Shyam. So before we start, I'm going to share something, and then we will talk. Let's do cheers first to these amazing students.
Yes.
Yay. So, not in any particular order. Who wants to go first? Thoughts after saying this. This is 2 years old. It was in 2023 we did this. Utsav.
I felt emotional because we were seeing students who, this was 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and they're still with us, and they've grown so much, as in physically got taller and, become older, but also in their dance. And I thought it was, just nice to see them realize their journey.
It's also interesting to see how classes evolve. Like the class that I'm teaching now looks very different to the class, even though I still teach that same class, it looks very different. There are different people that have come, there are people that have left. And even though the classes evolve and shift and they've, as Mira was saying, the students are growing so much. I was missing some of the students back then and just remembering them and how the class dynamic was then. And you had said this a little bit earlier about how you feed off the energy in the room when you're teaching. I've come to realize as that one class that I started with at Pagrav, as that has shifted with different energies coming into space, different people leaving, how my teaching has shifted along with that. So it's just interesting to observe that trajectory as well.
I was thinking about how they had prepared for that performance, and I think the Utsav that has just gone, the 2025 one, I think they had brought a lot more seriousness to their preparation. Yeah, just looking at that shift, that change in attitudes.
Yeah.
So before we actually start talking about teaching and all of those things, it would be very interesting for me to hear, because you guys play such different roles in your life and in Pagrav at different times. How does it feel to sit in this space at this particular time as a teacher?
I feel like my teaching has evolved as a teacher at Pagrav. So it doesn't feel as though if we'd had this conversation 3 years ago, I actually don't remember how long I've been teaching with Pagrav, maybe 5 years now?
Yeah, 5,
6 years. So yeah, if you'd asked me this 3 years ago, I would have felt very different. But I think, but that said, it's not because the actual practical nature of my teaching has shifted, but maybe my approach and my perspective on teaching and how I'm teaching has changed. So yeah, I guess I feel it feels very much part of my movement practice. Maybe a few years ago, it might have felt very separate as, I do teaching over here and then I do other dance stuff over here.
It's also a really lovely opportunity to reflect on the journey that has, I think out of all three of us, I've been teaching the least amount of time at Pagrav. So it's nice to kind of look at that journey and reflect on that and understand what is shifting in my practice as a response to being a teacher and a dancer at Pagrav, and how that kind of being a more holistic role in terms of giving back to the students as well as being a student and also being a dancer in production, how that all feeds in is something that's been quite wholesome over the journey of being going through those roles and assuming those roles at different points in my career. I take it as a huge privilege that we are able to assume those roles in one institution and be able to give and receive in that way. I think there's a beautiful give and take and I think we also, on a peer level, I'm learning so much from the other teachers that are part of the faculty and their practices and their approaches. Even when I come back after having been covered for, which is happening a lot recently, but even after that and hearing from the students how they really enjoyed learning this specific, one of my students said they learning the grade 2 gut from Mira a couple of weeks ago was really a really insightful experience. And I was just curious to understand what about Mira's practice was in a way that I can keep learning and keep being a sponge in the situation and learning from all of us. And I find that as it's a great privilege to be surrounded by artists that inspire me in this practice, but also so many other parts of my practice, and also students that feed into that inspiration as well.
So teaching has become, a really, really major part of my practice. But I think it's actually over my dance career, it has played a major part from the very beginning. It's not something that I knew was going to happen. It came about, and then it's a very major fixture, and it really provides so much. I think I give a lot to it as a teacher, and I think it gives a lot back in return. I've noticed that over the last 12, 13 years, how I've developed, how teaching impacts me, how it feeds into the other areas of my practice as well. Also, I've noticed maybe what I like, what I don't like, what I enjoy, what I'm good at, what I want to work on. And I think, as Shan was saying, how to also learn from your peers and from your mentors, and
So I'll kind of rewind, and start actually with you, Parvati, that you began to assist me in 2012 when I was expecting. And I remember asking you that if you're free, can you please just come and assist me? But what made you decide that you want to teach and not just dance? How did it develop you in that aspect?
I think maybe for both Mira and Sham, by the time they joined Pagrav, that was already a more like established kind of avenue or stream that you were suggesting to dancers who were joining the profession. I guess it was a bit of a chance happening, right? And I don't know. I think I just thought that, okay, I want this to be my career, and my attitude was that I'll just try everything that comes my way initially. Yeah, so it wasn't like something I was expecting necessarily. And once I started, it came very naturally. Yeah, I think I enjoyed breaking down technique, and helping people to understand the form better. Also, it was the whole exercise of kind of finding the language and ways of communicating, and what is the best way of communicating technique. So I think initially it was all I observed you, and then sort of I guess copied your techniques, but then we all have our own individual ways of expressing, so just finding ways that felt natural to me. And then at that time, because I was also just starting as a professional dancer, I had started spending a lot more time doing my own riyaz, but in a way that was more intensive. And I guess the two went hand in hand, that I was spending a lot more time doing riyaz. Yeah, be kind of introspective, but then at the same time pass that kind of introspection on to others. So they were quite complementary. Yeah.
Thank you. Mira, if I remember things correctly, you did shadow me for quite a long time. And I knew, and you were also saying that you enjoy teaching, but you were always very clear that you want to do only once a week teaching.
Yeah.
Why was that important to you?
I think it was because when I first took dance full time, the first thing I did was our Kadamb rehearsals, which were 3 weeks. And of course, the first time is always going to feel physically more demanding. But I just maybe realized from then that if I was, and I think obviously you've been teaching in the evenings all your life, basically. And I think I just realized that my like capacity to give to it would be limited by wanting to do the kind of week by week rehearsals, which I know a lot of people do rehearsals then do teaching, but I just felt like I wouldn't be able to give to both in both the rehearsals and then the teaching to the best of my ability. And I think I tried a lot. I think, like I said, I had this Wednesday class, and there's been times there's been cover and things, but it just feels a little bit more challenging. And because I know that especially with the Pagrav teaching, it's the commitment is this regular commitment with this class. And even though, yes, we can find cover, and I do feel a lot of guilt in not being when I can't be there. And maybe when that happened a few times, I realized that actually, yeah. So the Saturday classes that have been running for so many years felt like the perfect opportunity for me to take a class. And now I've got another 2 classes on that Saturday. And that felt great for me. But that said, I don't mind doing like ad hoc weekday teaching. So yeah, if it is the odd cover, or especially as Pagrav has grown and started going into schools and outside independently, I do separate kind of schools work and things. That feels great. But yeah, the kind of commitment of regularity on a weekday just wasn't kind of what I would have wanted.
That's amazing to have that clarity. That is something which I've always admired. Sham, your teaching journey is very different. If I compare with both of you, with both Meera and Parvati, your training with me as a teacher was very significantly less, and you arrived with your own instincts. What drew you to teaching in first place?
Interestingly, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember when I was kind of starting out, I think I was still at university, and I was kind of like, I knew that dance will be the end goal, but I was still technically a full-time student. Although I like to think when I was at university, I was like a part-time student and a full-time dancer at that time. But like in terms of like where I was situated, it was in full-time like education. And at that time I had asked you, is this the right time for me to think about teaching? And you had said no. And you had said to me, focus on your dance, focus on performing. You're young, you have the opportunity to really focus on this. And I think because I was still at university as well, you had said, focus on like building your craft. And I actually found that as really good advice at that time. And I'm really grateful that you had done that, because I had taught a little bit prior to that. I think when Meera was like teaching her own independent classes, I used to cover her classes quite a lot, and then also have ad hoc workshops that I would give on behalf of other organizations and whatnot. But I think I didn't really build a teaching practice. I was kind of, as Bhargati was saying, as we train, we kind of learn to kind of pick up the skills of passing on technique. But I don't think I was introspective about a teaching practice. And I don't think at that time when you told me that right now, maybe you should focus on building your artistic toolbox as a dancer. At that time, I think it was a really good and sound advice. And then I kind of fell into teaching with another institution, like just in the pandemic and then like during that online phase. And I think that one thing that was really great about that was that it really allowed me to kind of build, like understand what works and what doesn't work on that kind of home ground. But then I think coming back to teaching at Pagrav felt like coming home after that. It felt like I was returning to a familiar space, a space that felt, I felt ready. I felt very ready to teach at the time that I started formally teaching this class that you had shown. And that was my first class at Pagrav. And I felt really well equipped by that point. And that doesn't mean that I'm still not, of course, I'm still learning. And as they get more advanced, start to kind of try and build my toolbox in that way. And that doesn't mean that I won't shadow you if I need to, but I think having that experience, having that trajectory helped to kind of build it independently. And I feel like I understand how, at least the priorities of how I want to hold that space for the students, and how I want care to be the priority, and how, like, yeah, like all these things are like, I think I've understood that from that. And then coming into Pagrav, I hope that I'm value added in that space, and like I'm bringing that level of care and that attention into that space. So I think, yeah, if that helps.
I feel that all three of you deeply enjoy teaching. And at the same time, you're very much connected to your other creative part of yourselves. Um, how do those parts of your creative self shows up when you are teaching? And what kind of energy you consciously try to bring in your class when you are starting the class?
When I was when I was in class, I remember you said that I learn as much from my students as I am imparting to them, something similar to this. And at that time, I realized the kind of humility it takes to be a teacher, and the kind of and I was very inspired in that moment that it's not about this kind of which we see regularly, especially in Indian classical dance situation, where we see this teacher assume this role where they have a lot of knowledge, and then you see students being very humble and in accepting that knowledge and practice and in their practice. But I think this kind of exchange that you talked about was really beautiful, because I've now seen it manifest in my practice, in that for me to understand what kind of movement I am dancing in that moment, in that choreography, I have to dissect it. And the best way that I've understood how to dissect it is through teaching it to someone else in a class. And in articulating that, I'm actually understanding more about the dance that I'm understanding more about the dance that I'm performing by teaching. And there is just beautiful exchange where I feel like there's a richness being added to my practice. So there is this constant kind of exchange and this discussion. And I think that kind of made me shift my perspective on teaching completely, in that there is so much to learn about my practice, which is the approach that I enter the space with, is that as much as I may have to offer, and I'm still learning, I'm still growing. So I'm never this kind of, and I kind of encourage students to look at least me in that way, that I am, what I'm teaching is an offering that is my understanding at this moment. That doesn't mean that my practice won't shift still and it won't grow, but as much as they are works in progress, I'm also a work in progress. So when we enter that space, it's an exchange. There's not this kind of power dynamic, which I think was something really valuable that you imparted.
I was just thinking that what I bring in from other aspects of my practice, I think it depends on exactly what kind of class I'm teaching, what kind of group I'm teaching. And I think that's something that's developed over my teaching sort of career. Whereas before, maybe I would enter a space and have a more, not just one approach, but fewer ways of approaching a particular class or a group. So now, because I'm teaching students across a lot of different levels, and each of those groups, what they're, I'd say, hoping to get out of being in that space with me and their fellow students is also slightly different. So, for example, when I'm teaching a graded class, and especially a more junior grade, I feel it's my responsibility in that situation to just be a passer on of knowledge. I don't want to be any kind of gatekeeper at any level. I know that can be the case in certain settings within Indian classical dance, and I'm very much against that way of thinking. But in a space like Arohi, which is Pagrav's youth dance company, there I'm explaining things in a way that I want them to start triggering them to think in ways that are a little bit more advanced artistically. So there I'd say there's like a meeting of my pedagogical practice and my choreographic practice, and I'm trying to impart whatever wisdom I might have onto them. And with the graded classes, there's maybe slightly, it's not that I'm not trying to hold back on knowledge, but I feel like what I'm offering, what I feel is relevant in that particular setting. But across all of my practice, one thing I know that I'm very much interested in, I'm interested in how energy moves through the body, and how emotion is being kind of, where is it being created and in the body, how that connection between the physical sort of manifestation and the emotional kind of output. So whether that's in a grade 1 class or in a class where I'm wanting the students to kind of start maybe thinking about their own artistic practices, I think that's like what excites me. So I want to offer that so that it starts exciting them as students, and as dancers, as performers, as choreographers.
I think actually, Parvati, you saying what feels meaningful for you, I feel like similarly that kind of drives my whatever creative practice I'm in. And I think like if I was to try get to like the core of that, it would be that movement and dance offers me an opportunity to kind of know my body better and know myself better, and to bring focus and awareness and attention. And I think that's generally how I would approach my teaching practice, as an opportunity for others to do the same, or to give tools and guide people through a class to be able to do that. And so that would be, and then that comes into teaching, as well as like my performance practice and any other kind of teaching environments I find myself in. I think, I guess, like a big part that, again, I don't know where it started, but it again spans both teaching with Pagrav, but also outside of that, is learning how people access their own movement and their own way of learning. And I think like a big influence for that would have been things that I was exposed to in terms outside of like even dance, how like people with disabilities eat, and how people doing support work for people with different sensory needs. But then when it came to Pagrav, I feel as though like the biggest kind of piece of wisdom, which Urja Didi, the way that you teach, which has come from the way Gumiben teaches, is about how a person who is dancing should be dancing in their own body. And their body could be a different size, a different height, a different length, a different everything. I think that's been massively influential in the way that I teach Kathak, but then it comes into spaces which happen outside of my Pagrav teaching practice, which is how does someone with a disability, they are another body or another mind, and then how do we make performance for people like that as well, and how do they access performance and dance in ways that are less traditional, I guess. I guess it's kind of any body, any mind, but it's not just it. I feel like it's not as simple as just offering something to someone and being like, hey, try this. It's about really, really deeply trying to understand what are the kind of entry points into someone's mind understanding something, or their body understanding something, and then doing it and then experiencing it.
So what I'm hearing in all three of you is the sense of responsibility and care while you are doing teaching. Right? This is something which I'm hearing very strong. and which is very interesting because the next question is about that. So, what do you feel responsible when you are teaching? And where does the care show up when you are teaching?
I read something recently, which I found very, I don't know, yeah, inspiring, I guess, but also I just resonated with it in terms of what I aspire to be. I hope I am and aspire to be as a teacher. It's from an article which has a lot of tributes for Sir David Attenborough because it was his 99th birthday last year. And one of the tributes by Kate Humble, so he's also like a wildlife nature presenter, TV presenter. So she wrote, when you see something you've never seen before, you need a guide. Someone with authority, but who doesn't talk down to you. Someone with knowledge they want to share. Someone with infectious enthusiasm. Always curious, always with a sense of wonder. Someone who tells the story without making themselves the story. And that's David. So I just thought that was a really lovely tribute. And I feel like, oh my God, this is what I want to be. This is what I hope to be for my students. So I think, that little passage is very special. Going back to what you asked in terms of how I entered the space, I didn't have any preconceived ideas about what I need to be as a teacher. I think one thing that informs my teaching practice is I like being organized in certain ways. I know that maybe in other ways I can be a bit scatty, but yeah, I like structure. I like things to be organized, and I think that helps in my delivery, I guess, of the material of breaking things down for the students. I think I like teaching people who want to be taught. I know that sounds really like obvious, but I think it's not that I don't have time for people who don't want to be there, but I feel like I'm bringing a lot of energy and a lot of passion to that space, and I'd hope that people on the receiving end are there willingly and wanting to take that effort on.
The obvious responsibilities of when you're teaching anyone something, you feel as though you want to pass on the knowledge in a way that feels very accurate to the theory that you know and what you feel like is safe for the body, and there's all things like that. And I guess that was like the most like direct learning from shadowing you, Urja Didi. But there's lots of, I guess, like indirect things that come through. And I guess maybe I think back to when I was learning at the age of some of the students that I teach. So from 5, 6 to, into teenagers and adulthood. And I feel as though especially I remember when one of my classes, at least half of the class it was really obvious they were going from like childhood into adolescence. And I realized there was such a big responsibility in those 1.5 hour sessions to offer them a space where they could like maybe be a bit open about something that might have felt difficult. That's not about learning, I guess role modeling an openness to like what you're bringing at an age where that might feel difficult. That I remember I really felt responsibility strongly then. And it's a balance, of course, because you're there, they are there to learn, but I think it's to give it the right amount of space and then show that actually we can still be here and learn and have a good time, even though people have got stuff going on. And I guess with all of this idea of feeling like a role model, and there's care that just comes with that, and attentiveness to how I'm being. Of course, I'm then being a person that I think I should be, if that makes sense. I'm biased to what my values are of what I think people should be like. But yeah, it hopefully just comes through, and it's demonstrating that how you can be. And again, I'm coming back to maybe the girls who are now teenagers, and me at that age, I didn't have loads of brown women role models, and my dance teachers were definitely like a really big part of that. Or I wasn't aware of the brown women role models around me as strongly as I was of my dance teachers, I think. So that feels important.
Reflecting on some learning experiences I've had, and I guess I continued attending those spaces despite not feeling cared for, because I just really wanted to keep learning. But it could have gone the other way. I could have felt like, okay, that's it, I'm leaving now and I'm done. So I guess subconsciously I don't want students to ever feel that way, and I don't want to take it for granted that they're going to carry on either. So I know that I'm not like that, but still, you kind of have to, what would you say, check in with your how you're conducting yourself in a class, and at the same time I tell them that I want them to express themselves, and I want to get to know them as people, because I know that the teacher that I didn't enjoy learning from, they didn't want that. They weren't interested in getting to know us as people. But also, you can learn properly, but the environment can be relaxed. I'll give you the space to express yourself and to have fun, but then after a certain point, I think, remember why you're here and what you're trying to I guess gain from being in the space with me and with your fellow students.
The importance of care in the learning environment is something that I've learned through being at Pagrav, be it being a student, and then, as I was saying, the kind of roles that we've assumed. But I think care, especially in the learning aspect of the spaces that we are in Pagrav, is very much at the core, and it's something that you very consciously curated into that space. Having that personal experience is something that has really helped me, like, in being a student. I mean, it's in something that's really helped me in holding that space and carving out that space, and just holding that well-wishing attitude that you always want them to continue growing in their practice, no matter where that is. I think that's a responsibility that I hold really strongly, whether it's with me, whether it's with someone else, but like whatever happens, the fact that they're continuing their training in a place that is safe, and I feel like they will flourish, that is the priority, and that knowing that and carrying that forward is something that I really hope that is the case,
Thank you. Thank you. Shifting the focus a little bit towards students, what do you think they respond most to? Do they respond most to challenge, clarity, energy, presence, or do they just there to kind of just enjoyment is the main ethos, or for you enjoyment comes a little later?
So I think it varies. Of course, it varies in that I think different students come into this space with different intentions. Some of them really want to know the intricacies of lay and tal beyond their years, and you know, they may have had backgrounds in classical music, so they come in with this like, oh, but like, what is the intricacy of this? Or like, they're asking those questions and you're like, oh, this is giving me so much joy that you have this level of like wanting to know this in such meticulous detail. And there are some that are just like, I want to do it, I want to drill it. And I'm like, but you can't drill it until you know it. So it's just like interesting that like, I think what motivates students is different. And even in one class, it will be different. But I think what ends up happening in a class is that they mold a collective energy and how they function together. And I think that's quite beautiful because you then understand what their needs are and what their aims are. So then you start to layer your teaching. You find a balance and you find a way of working with that class that allows them to like get what they need to out of it in any one go.
I would agree with a lot of what Sham's saying. I guess maybe what I find quite interesting is reflecting on the young people and how so many of them are in, well, as most are in this kind of way of learning or like trajectory of learning at school, which is like you learn and then you do an exam, you learn, you do an exam. Obviously, Pagrav, we do ISTD exams with the students. So it kind of offers the same framework that some, like all school students are used to. I do find it quite interesting when some decide not to do the exam, because it's all, I guess I expect that that's how people like want to progress, but when they decide not to, I find it really refreshing. I'm like, oh, that's really great that like you're young, you're 10 or however old, and actually you do just want to learn for the sake of learning. Not to say that's more or less valuable than doing the exam, but it is going against the grain of like what they're used to in most school learning settings. So that's quite interesting. I think like something that all students, regardless of age, regardless of level, I think seek, but don't necessarily, or maybe again, this is maybe me as a student, I seek this, so I feel as though it's important to have this, is presence. As a teacher, I feel like as a teacher, not having presence, and students, I don't know, depending on age, if they're 4, they'll just get distracted and run away. If they're a teenager, they'll maybe get a bit bored. But I think presence really just holds the room, and that's regardless of age, regardless of anything level.
Yeah, sometimes I go into a class or a session knowing that, okay, I want to like pass this on or offer this, so, and therefore I will hit a certain, or want to bring a particular kind of energy to the space. But then sometimes students can also walk into the room and be like, I just really don't feel well today. And they want to be there, but they still want to move. And so then I think it comes back to what you were asking about care and being responsible and also responsive. So, okay, how can we then like navigate the situation and make sure people feel like they're being met? But also sometimes students don't know what they need as well. And you can offer them something that in the end they're like, oh wow, that felt really great. And they weren't expecting it as well. I think also we should, I think I said it earlier, like be true to what we can offer as just individuals. And that doesn't mean that I've not grown as a teacher in the way alongside the rest of my practice, but yeah, just being honest in that space.
Right. What do you hope a student feel when they leave your class?
Like sometimes it's like they've achieved something, even if it's small. They or just feel lighter if they've come in feeling heavy. Yeah, I'm sure we can all riff off other things. There's probably so much. It's never just one thing. If they've learned something, great. If they've remembered something, if they've proved themselves wrong, that they could do something that they thought they couldn't do. Or actually they felt overconfident and realised actually they need to do more work on something.
I hope that something's been opened up in their bodies and also in their like thinking or their imagination, and and that they've come away with a positive feeling.
Yeah, I hope similar, but I hope that you know they are able to move and be moved. I think that's something I really like to think about. Like, they're able to move more freely and they're able to feel moved by what's going on in the space and feel like they're in touch with their emotions, they're in touch with their body, they're able to feel things that they may have not been able to in other spaces. So there's that. And also just like, I guess like understanding that progress is not always linear. Like, I think, you know, we live in this very like space that like, you know, you move from one thing to the next and there's like this kind of linearity to that journey, but understanding that sometimes like progress isn't that way. Like, yes, the general trajectory we hope is to be moving, but there's this kind of constant state of equilibrium that we're finding with the training, and it's not always that every class will always be. There's sometimes when a student may leave with frustration in that they've not got something in that class that they did get early or something like that. But it's not about them leaving with frustration that means that they cannot do it, but leaving with the hope that their progress isn't linear, but they will get it at some point. You know, I think that kind of understanding is important for them to have. And of course, then having a positive outlook to the learning and a positive outlook to the space.
Okay. Now, these are almost like a one-liner answers, yes and no, and expand only if you feel the need to expand. Okay. It's not very necessary. You can just say yes and no explanation required. Do you do enough yourself to keep learning as a teacher?
I hope so.
I'd say I make a conscious effort.
Yeah, I would say yeah. Generally, like the content that we teach, I try and spend time with it to like bring in insight that's personal to me, maybe in different ways, whether that's like technique or expression or stories that feel relevant.
If you had a twin, what is the most important bit of advice you could give them?
I would say, like, when it comes to teaching, take it at a slower pace than you think the class even needs. Because actually what happens personally for me is that sometimes there's like so many moving parts to a teaching environment that I'll end up feeling like, oh, no, we're running out of time and we're doing this and doing this. But really, actually, if you just like take it easy, take a chill pill, it's okay. And usually that pace suits most people in the class. And then if you start there, then you can go quicker. Like if the class are like, okay, yeah, we've got this. But actually taking it slow helps me personally in my mind and brain to just like keep up with what's going on. And then the pace can be set for the class and then it can go from there.
I would say have a plan, but don't worry if you deviate from your plan. Yes.
I would say that have patience. I think there's similar to what Mira was saying about being slow, but I think also in the interactions that I'm having with students, like sometimes even the situation, like for example, if we're working towards a student showcase or an exam, there's a kind of strive to achieve what you want to in that time, but having patience to know that their journey continues onward and beyond that. So that point is not a mark of like their progress, but it's a pit stop on a journey to more, you know? So having that patience to be there and allow that journey to unfold.
What is one thing that you would do if you weren't afraid at all?
If I wasn't afraid of not having savings, I would find a small building, which is like a community center building, and open up like an teaching company space where it's for maybe people with like different disabilities and different sensory needs or communication needs to come and learn. And it's kind of specifically a movement practice center, which would be dance, but could be other things. But it's because I'm scared of I don't have the money. So that's my fear.
You can still do it.
And live without savings?
No. Find partners.
Yeah, that's true. On my list.
Just over the last maybe couple of years, I've been thinking that I'd like to do like performance coaching, but for professionals, but like publicizing that more. But I guess I'm afraid because of, I don't know, lots of hierarchies. Like, oh, what does Barbara have to offer me as a as a fellow, like as a peer, I guess. But I think I do have a lot to offer.
You do, Barbara.
But you might have to just start as like 30 minutes for free with someone. It just builds. It starts from something really small, right?
Yeah.
Right. Who was the person who first believed in you?
So when I grew up learning dance, I remember like it was very uncommon for boys to learn dance, and I just remember, for example, members of family being like, "Why is Sham learning dance?" And she would just have such conviction in the fact, even when she didn't truly maybe understand it herself, she just had such conviction in the fact that it was purposeful and there was a reason why. And she believed in that way before I even believed that it was possible, you know? Like she would, very militantly actually, like set us exercises at home. Like for example, she would draw a square on our wooden floor at home and make sure we were doing our chakras in that square, and we would do like 50 a day. Or like she would make us align our angles according to that box. And these are things that I teach my students now. But like she believed in the value of that training and the value that, like, she believed that I could be a dancer before I could be a dancer, before I thought that I could be a dancer. And that's something very special. So I owe a lot of who I am and the way I'm able to express myself to her.
I would say Nilima Ji was the first person who I was aware believed in me, because I think my parents have always quietly believed in me, but they didn't know what really was like good Kathak and good dancing. I was their daughter. I was always going to do good because they just love watching their daughter dance. So I think when Nilima Ji first actually said, "This is really like really good. She should take it very seriously." That was the first that I kind of heard it. And then like I said, my parents have always quietly believed in me. Then they're not ones to express like very openly and like I am, but they've never said no, which is really massive, I think. So I would say Nilima Ji, and then there was Anand and Akash, who also tried to push me to do it at university, and I didn't do that. But I think that stayed with me after university as well, to be like, maybe it's something that's realistic. And then you. But you did say first person, so Nilima Ji, I would say,
I think similar to Mira, Shushmita Didi, she had told, I think, my mum. But I don't think I knew at that time, or I wasn't told at the time. Only later did, I think, my mum tell me, or Shushmita Didi tell me. I can't remember, it was so long ago now. She said something like, your daughter's, like, she's got something a bit more special, so, but maybe don't tell her. But just like see that she keeps at it, kind of thing. And then you, Urja.
What is your favorite sound?
The sound of the which I don't hear, but I wish I could get a recording of my mum ringing the mandir bell in the morning.
Oh,
Okay, I've So it's a sound that my brothers and we associate with Calcutta, waking up in like a sunny, beautiful morning in Calcutta, and it's the bird sound, and it goes. Do you know that?
Isn't that peacock?
Peacock,
Is it
peacock.
No, it's not. It's not the peacock. It's something else. Oh, I don't know which bird it is, but yeah, it's like it feels like an alarm, but like a really lovely, soft, quite funny alarm.
The sound of Kushal's car pulling up in the driveway is one of my favorite sounds right now. I'm like, oh my God, come home to me.
Great. What topic is no one talking about now that historians will study in future?
How Kathak technique evolved on Instagram.
Lovely.
I was going to say something about like kind of the globalization of our form in terms of the visibility of being able to see different styles and movements and things, and how even the idea of gharanas is slightly more blurred now because you watch so many different styles of Kathak and you don't know where that sits. That kind of understanding of the globalization of the form in this day, and maybe how the idea of gharana is less rigid.
Yeah, just actually bouncing off of what Sham just said, something about how like local culture or like a particular local culture has been influencing the trajectory of the way you think and approach creativity, and I guess maybe it's like aesthetics and kind of gaze and lots of things that are influencing and
Yeah, I was also going to add like diaspora art making, like how like people who are like us who are born in not the country where the art forms originated, what their practices and approaches were and have changed it.
Are you happy now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the end of our podcast. Thank you, Sham, Meera, Parpati. As I sit with this conversation, I'm reminded that teaching is never neutral. It carries memories, experience, and belief, often without us realizing it. I learned how to teach by watching, by observing how knowledge was held with care. Over time, I have had to learn how to trust others to carry that care differently. This conversation wasn't about finding the right way to teach. It was about noticing how many ways care can show up in the room. Lineage, I'm learning, isn't something we protect by keeping it the same. It stays alive when it's allowed to move, to question, and to respond. What matters most to me is that the students feel seen and they feel challenged, supported, and listened to. And that teaching remains a practice of attention to bodies, to time, and to teach each other. That's what I'm carrying forward. Thank you, all three of you, for a lovely conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Urja Didi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Rhythm and Chai. These conversations are about remembering, and it's about recognizing the people and relationships that hold the work up. If something in today's conversation stayed with you, I hope you will carry it forward. Join me next time as we continue listening to what lives beneath the rhythm, shared slowly over a chai.